Hello there and welcome back to my channel, or if this is the first video of mine you are seeing, then welcome. So I did end up picking up the Huda Beauty Icy Nude palette. I did pick it up from before the sale. I know that was probably not the smartest move ever to make, but I really wanted this palette, and I was afraid that it would sell out during the sale because I figured a lot of people might have waited for it then and got a discount on it, so I wanted to go ahead and pick it up. But this is just such a beautiful eyeshadow palette. It's just so stunning. I have to turn it a little bit because it does reflect. Now I want to do 3 different eye looks. Of course, I'm just going to do my usual where I go by each row. So I'm going to be doing 3 eye looks so I can use all of the shades in the palette. I do have swatches coming up in just a second. So we're going to be doing that first, and then I'm going to get on into the first looks. So if that sounds interesting, let's get started. Alright, I have you zoomed in a little bit. Now, I will say that I'm on a bit of a time crunch because I did have a doctor's appointment this week that kind of messed up some filming days. So, I'm going to film look 1 and look 2 today. Like, I'm just going to do 2 different eye looks because I have to do that in order to get this video out in time. So, I'm just going to do that, and then look number 3, I'll just do both eyes. So, we're going to start with row number 1, and I'm going to take a Sigma E24, and I'm going to go into the shade High Life, which, it's wanting to reflect this shade right here. I'm going to start running that into my crease. I will say that the palette swatched fairly well, and one more thing that I want to mention. Once we get to the 3rd row in the palette, when I'll be doing look 3, I just want to mention right now, I will not be using the shade Bling. That is a pressed glitter, and it might be cosmetic grade glitter, I have no idea, but I don't want that around my eyes, so that's the only shade in the palette that I will not be using. Look, I wear contacts, and I already have enough problems with my eyes as it is, so I don't really want to put that around my eye. This shade is very, very pretty. I don't know how much it'll come up on camera, but I am building it up just a little bit as I'm going along. Just want to make sure that's nice and built up. There are 6 shades in each row, so I'm going to try to squeeze in all of them just so I can, at least say I've used all of the shades. I know it's probably not the best way to do this. I know, because it'd probably be better to do more than 3 looks, but I do want to at least say I've put the shade on my eye in some capacity. Okay, on a Sigma E54, I'm going in with the shade Unapologetic. I thought this was such a pretty color story. Let me dig back into that shade a little bit. It just looks so soft and delicate like in the pictures, and I just knew that I had to have it. And then when I saw that this was going to be her last larger eyeshadow palette, I'm glad that I picked it up. Just kind of blending that out here into this outer half of my lid, into that crease. And then going back in with that Sigma E24 and going around the edges of that shade. Then I'm going to take the shade Platinum on my finger. I'm going to go ahead and film look 1 all the way through here, because that way I can make my timestamps make a little more sense. And I'm going to put this shade right here in the center. Of course, I mean, I expect this palette to be fine. I didn't expect any kind of issues at all with this one. And then last, I'm going to take the shade Iced Out, also on my finger. This is one of those a little bit more chunkier shades, if that makes sense. You'll probably see what I'm talking about if you watched my swatches. Some of these shades, you see that? Oh, it's a little bit kind of chunky. Some of them are like that. I mean, once you smooth them out, they're fine, but I just want to mention that. So I'm going to try to place that right here at the beginning. If it goes over the platinum shade a little bit, that's totally fine. That's pretty, like a little pop of blue almost, like it shifts to like a blue. That's pretty. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that, and I'm going to overlap that platinum shade just a little bit. Just a little bit more than what I was doing. Wow, that's pretty. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do my concealer, and we can go do the lower lash line. So what I'm doing here is, this is the Smashbox and Becca Under Eye Corrector. This is in this shade Fair Light. I'm going to take a little bit of this first. I'm not going to fully blend that out yet, and then I'm going to go in with some concealer. I'm going to be using the Refi Concealer. This one is in the shade 2. I'm going to place that a little dot right over the top of that. This shade is a little bit too light for me. So I thought maybe if I mixed it in a little bit with that corrector, maybe it would help the shade a little bit. I don't think it is, but it's okay. And on that Sigma E54, I'm going in with the shade Faux Fur. I only dipped into that shade once, and I'm going to run it right out here on this outer half of my lower lash line. I know this shade is incredibly pigmented, so I'm just going to lightly run that right out here. I don't want too much. I'm going to wipe off my brush and then go back in and just slightly blend around that. And then on that same brush, I'm going to take the shade Gold Standards. I know this shade would probably do much better with my finger, but I want to kind of keep it more precise. So we'll see. And let's pop that right here in this inner portion. That shade did definitely create some fallout. Of course, I didn't spray my brush or anything like that. If you want to avoid that, you probably could do that, which is what I should have done. Okay, but there is look number 1. I'm not going to do mascara or anything yet because I'm going to move right over to look number 2. Okay, I'd already set my eyeshadow primer, but I see there's a shade in here that would have worked perfectly for that. Okay, so you know what? I'm going to try something. On that Sigma E24, I did wipe all of these brushes off. I did clean them. I'm going to mix the shade Gold Plunge and Poise together. I'm just going to dip back and forth into these shades. Something tells me that Poised might be a little bit too deep for my crease. So I'm going to dip into that and then dip in a little bit to Gold Plunge to kind of lighten it a little bit. And then let's run that in the crease and see what we get. Oh yeah, that makes a pretty shade. I'm sorry I'm having to do like look 1, look 2 like this. I do like to do like my full look instead, but I wanted to get this video out by Monday's upload, especially if you were someone who was looking to pick it up during the sale. I'm hoping it'll still be available by Monday. Of course, I mean, you know, you might not even want this palette, but if you have something in your collection already of a similar color story, then that's perfectly fine. Just pull that out and recreate any of these looks if you like any of them, of course. Yeah, that worked out perfectly, dipping that shade in, because I feel like that poised shade would have been just too deep on its own for my crease, for my skin tone. This is such a pretty palette. Like, it's so pretty. I knew, the moment I saw it, I knew I had to have it. I had to have it. I like this one better than I did last year's palette. I think last year's palette was pretty. I think the Pretty Grunge palette, it was pretty, but I like this year's better. But that's for my preferences. Yeah, I think I might end up doing something similar to the next two shades. One's just a plain white, but I have two shimmer shades that I want on the lid because I like to have some shimmer on the lid. So on a Sigma E54, I'm going to take the shade Avalanche and the shade She Rich, and I'm just going to dip back and forth into each of those two. This is another way I like to lighten up deeper shades because if you are not new to my channel, if you've watched my videos, then you know I like to keep things soft. It's just my preference. So I like that I kind of have that option in this palette. I have two shades that I can mix in and create a little bit of a softer shade. That made it like a pretty gray. I'm going to work that up into that crease. I'm going back in with that Sigma E24, and I'm going to work around the edges of that shade. I will say though, they blend really, really beautifully. There's really no issues whatsoever with the blending. Okay, you know what? I think I'm just going to do one shimmer shade on the lid this time instead of both of those. I'll put the other one on the lower lash line because I've used all of the mattes. So I'm going to take the shade VVS. This is another one of those kind of chunky shades. And we're going to place that all over the lid. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That is beautiful. Look at that shade. I don't even know if my lights, my camera will even do that justice. If you get this palette, definitely do not let the chunkiness scare you away because once you smooth them out on the lid, oh, they're beautiful. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to do my under eye corrector and we're going to do my Refi concealer. All of the products that I'm going to be using on my face will be listed and linked for you below, of course. Some of them I'm probably not going to really talk about while I'm filming this part, like foundation or anything. I know I will definitely tell you at the end what like lip combo I'm wearing or the blush I'm wearing, but the rest of the products will be listed and linked for you below in case you are curious. I applied way too much of that Refi concealer. You do not need a lot of that concealer whatsoever. Now we have one more shade in the palette, and that is a shimmer shade. So I'm going to take my E54 and we're going to go into the shade Aurora. Okay, this time I'm going to spray my brush because we saw what that shade did over here. It did create some fallout on this side. Not a big deal, but I do want to mention it. So this time I'm going to spray my brush. Kind of keep it more confined. It's still going to probably leave fallout, but, you know, I don't personally mind that. I know some people don't like it. Like the shimmer fallout. Not like matte fallout, like the actual, like, shimmery shades leaving sparkles all over your face. I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me, but I know it does some people. Honestly, I think this eye might be my favorite. This is pretty. I love these shades, but that shimmer shade, that was what, VVS? That is so pretty. Okay, so that is the two eye looks right here, all done. So I'm going to quickly do the rest of my face off camera, and I'll come right back and tell you blush and lip combo. Here is the completed look. Okay, these eye looks turned out really, really beautiful. Now the blush I am wearing today is from Say. This is one of their dew blushes in the shade Chili. And for my lip combo, I'm wearing the NYX Slim Lip Pencil in the shade Natural, and the Merit, this is the Signature Matte Lipstick in the shade Classic. I thought that would be a pretty combo with the blush. I feel like it matches that blush perfectly. But yeah, that is looks 1 and 2, so on to look number 3. Okay, we're moving on to look number 3, which is this bottom right here. But like I said, I'm not going to be using this shade. It is a pressed glitter. But on a Sigma E24, I'm going to start out with the shade IDGAF. Now this shade is very, very light. I don't know if it's going to show up or not. So let's see. I don't know if it's going to really do anything. I might have to go in with something else. Well, ew, it looks kind of weird on me. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to run that up into my brow bone area. That looks a little odd. Okay, I'm going to just put the excess on the lid. You know what? We're just going to kind of use that as another setter shade. How about that? I did already set my eyeshadow primer, but that looks, yeah. Okay, well, we're going to run that all the way up to the brow bone. Be a nice brightening shade. And let's do the same thing on the other side. I don't know how I feel about this right off, but you know what? I'm just going to trust the process. It's not exactly what I thought it would look like. It looks more white, like a white shade in person. But in the pan, it looks kind of like a soft lilac. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is a little bit more of a lilac, but it kind of looks just like a white shade. But it would make a great mix-in for another shade if you're wanting to maybe lighten it up some. I will say I wore the other two looks for about, I'd say, 8 hours at least. I don't wear my makeup very long periods of time, so if you are looking for like those 12 to 15 hour wear tests, I don't wear my makeup that long. I usually at the most wear my makeup at least up to about 9 to 10 hours, no further. But the day I was wearing those two looks, it was about 8 hours, and they looked really beautiful by the end of the day. Okay, I'm going to go in on that same brush into the shade Oneself. I don't know how pigmented this one might be either. So let's try running that into the crease. I'm going to have to pack it. These are some very soft shades on this row, or they look like it at least. At least these first two mattes. I don't really see anything happening. A little, maybe? I keep tapping into that shade and then really packing it on, but I don't know, maybe I have to go in with more of a dense brush. I can see a little bit. I don't know if it'll even, yeah, I don't even know if you'll be able to see that on camera. I can just barely make it out in person. Let me try packing that shade on the lid and just see if we can see it. It's probably also because I put that other shade down. Like, I can see it in person. It's just very soft. But you know what? The more I look at it, the more I like it. I am having to dig back in, but now I am using a little bit more of a fluffier brush here, so keep that in mind. Honestly, I really like the way that looks. You can see, yeah, the difference. Let's do the same thing on this side. I just keep digging back into that shade. I'm going to pack it on the lid and then also into my crease. Honestly, I really like the way it looks. I mean, I don't know. I guess I just need to continue trusting the process, but I think it's pretty. It's like a gray lilac-y color. Those two shades mixed together, and I really like that. And then I'm going to take the shade Diamond Dew on my finger. This is another one of those more chunkier shades. I picked up just a little bit of that, and I'm going to tap that all over the lid. I want to give that kind of more scattered effect. I don't want it to be too concentrated. I kind of want more of the scattered look. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, but it just has like the most prettiest shimmery sparkle. Yeah, I think you can see it. It's so pretty. I'm not tapping too much into that shade, and I'm not like rubbing into it. I'm just picking up enough on my finger to kind of be able to do this. Scatter it around. I might have picked up a little bit more. Just kind of rub that in. Not gonna lie, I kind of had my doubts there, but you know what? I kind of like how it's very wintry, kind of in a way. Like, I don't know. Like a little wintry lilac fairy. It's really cute to think about. Okay, I'm going in with my Smashbox and Becca Under Eye Corrector. Go ahead and place this down because we're going to go ahead and do that lower lash line too. And then I'm going to take some of my Refi concealer, just a teeny little dot right there on both sides. This shade is a little too light for me, like I've mentioned, and I don't want it just right directly under my eye because I don't want like that semicircle. That will definitely look like I went outside with sunglasses. So I mostly want it right here in this area. And you can see just a little dot goes a long way. You definitely don't need a lot of this concealer. The more you use, the worse it's going to look, in my opinion, with this particular concealer. At least on me. Okay, on a Sigma E54, I'm going to mix the shades First Class and Lavish, just go back and forth. This might look a little odd because these shades look a little more warm, but I thought if I mix them together, I'm just trying to use every single shade in the palette. You know, those two shades mixed together are very pretty. I'd love to see that on the lid too, but I was just more curious about the other shades. Okay, I'm just going to do mascara, do the rest of my face, and I will come right back and tell you the blush that I'm wearing as well as the lip. Okay, and here is the final look. Look number 3. You know, I actually really like the way this turns out. It's so pretty and just so wintry. The blush turned out a little bit more on the warm side, but I think it goes well with the shades on my under eye area. For blush, I'm just wearing this Jouer Blush Duo in Adore, and then on the lips I'm wearing the e.l.f. Pout Clout Lip Plumping Pen in the shade Toasted. But I have used now every single shade in the palette minus the pressed glitter, but that type of shade like that I just don't really want to wear on my eyes. As I mentioned before, I do wear contacts. I don't want that having the chance to get in my eye, and if it was to get on my contact or underneath my contact, I'd be in a lot of problems, so I am not going to be using that shade. But I have used every single shade in this palette, and I will say this is a beautiful palette. I like this one so much better than I did last year's. I still think last year's was absolutely beautiful, and I think you can still purchase that one, I believe. I'm not sure about that, but this one is just so pretty to me. I just think the color story is beautiful. I feel like if this is something you were looking at, it was something you wanted to purchase, I don't think you'd be disappointed at all with it. I personally am not. However, if you are not interested in it, I'm sure you have shades just like it in your collection. I'm sure you can quite easily create very similar looks to the ones I've done here in this video. All in all, I'm still happy to have it in my collection. I think it's a really beautiful palette. But I do hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, I hope you will please consider leaving a like, a comment, or subscribing if you haven't already. Make sure you hit the bell icon so you are alerted to all my future uploads. Follow me on Instagram at jessicadeerly. All of these products will be listed and linked for you below. They are affiliate links, so if you click through and purchase, I do earn a small commission, and if you choose to do so, thank you so much for supporting me and my channel, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!